Summer is not a time for writing much, I find, but for daydreaming on islands of empty calm, and reading for pure pleasure, with a side order of mortification of the flesh. It's for remembering who you are, and nothing is as effective in this respect as coming back to the body. I do plenty of reading, thinking, reflecting back and projecting forward. Plenty of swimming, running and climbing the odd mountain, but not so much writing. Hannah Arendt was a fine one for summertime productivity, turning out a complete manuscript based on lecture notes from the academic year. So too was Henry James, for whom even a sun-drenched Italian terrace could not distract from his work in progress. Like all self-employed creators, he felt he couldn't afford a holiday unless he looked down and fell off his baggy monster-generating tightrope. It makes sense to live by the seasons and respect the call of calm once or twice in the year around the solstices, when else to restore and recharge. You know you're ready to dive back in when you can tell yourself you feel a little bored and restless, eager for the next surge of creative energy and for time to catch that wave in motion. I find myself once again bobbing and diving on the quick currents. The inclemency of this summer in the west of Ireland didn't stop us for going for daily dips in the sea, and neither did the cinnamon clouds of seaweed or swarms of stinger jellyfish trailing boas the colour of wet coffee grounds. The more cold and grey and rainy the morning, the more pride we took in traipsing to the beach for the cold cure. The body shock of immersion has the delayed effect of mixing a heady natural cocktail which elevates the mood and primes you to go beyond your psyche's comfort barriers to where the exciting stuff can happen. Comfort is overrated, wonderful to have, and yet never enough. We were built to be tough. You want to be the one who scythes into the cold water without a sound, unless it's an affirmative whoop and no complaints. If your shin bones ache so it feels as though your flesh is being hot-wired, you don't want to betray yourself by expressing it while it's happening. You might decide to share it later, laconically, but the last thing you want is for anyone to express sympathy in the moment. Too much sympathy undermines courage. And at the same time, you don't want to underestimate the water's temperature, ignore the body's signals, and end up hypothermic. Your pain is meaningful, relaying a message you need to heed. There is a fine line to tread, but increasingly I'm giving up on the ideal of comfort. The more often you swim outdoors, run a 5K to start the day, and embark on a project which scares you, the greater your energy and focus. And this discipline is invaluable for creative people who cannot rely solely on external motivation to keep them moving, making, developing and completing. Thinking over the summer break about this correlation between embracing discomfort and fuel for creative projects, I began to muse on the subject of women whose writing is renowned for a certain toughness and lack of sentimentality. To place some limits, I'm especially interested in British and Irish women writing from mid-century to the present. I started down one of my research rabbit holes, I love few activities more, and found that the names which cropped up most frequently belonged to continental European philosophers and North American cultural critics. However, I found myself strongly drawn to the novelists, and thus began my quest to define and to plumb a tradition of toughness as style in Anglo and Irish women novelists. British cultures, as North American, struggle with how to approach suffering and the attendant emotions in the medium of writing, Small t trauma has become an industry, a cultural value, and a means to auto-validate that most elusive and protean of qualities, authenticity. It is not generally those with the most unbearable tales who get to tell them on the page, although there are exceptions. Those who do tell may believe that there is something special about their particular suffering which sets it apart from the general human condition, and that describing their suffering will alleviate others. These are big R, romantic notions. Then they're faced with the choice between the recitation of observable events as they recall them, and narrative regarding their interior experience, how they felt and have come to feel about what happened. Direct expression of strong emotion triggers aversion in the reader, who wants space to experience their own emotional response and think their thoughts without being told how to feel, or simply to look away so they don't have to do the work of empathy, which is not, by the by, the panacea it is presented as, where to do so would require energy-intensive re-evaluation of their beliefs and opinions. Affectless reporting, however, also triggers distaste and worst. Difficult truths related in a dispassionate tone have never been less fashionable. To be dispassionate about one's own suffering is passé. To situate oneself as having a claim to victimhood is de rigueur, almost a necessary qualification for picking up the pen. Public intellectual activity seems to have been captured by a requirement of modern-day sainthood, perhaps as a palliative for various cultural guilts. Caught between these horns is exactly where a serious writer wants to be. If you write to reflect critically on emerging orthodoxies, and your writing has ever been judged guilty of failure of feeling, of incorrect emotion, lack of empathy, wrong perspective, and so on, perhaps you consider that such judgments would mean nothing were it not that they can be accompanied by a bureaucratic autoimmune response, ranging from the common digital pitchfork mob through to complaints to employers, solicitors' letters, and even process as punishment entanglements in the criminal justice system. The digital public square provides rich pickings for power seekers in pursuit of a flex and a scapegoat. Such obstacles to unsentimental writing take up time and energy, yet there's little point in writing if not to run those risks. Writing with permission, according to a pre-endorsed script and within conventional tramlines, is okay if what you seek is formulaic entertainment that will be forgotten the moment you put it down. And entertainments are just fine, but the psyche can no sooner flourish on a diet of pure entertainment than one could thrive on a diet of only macarons. My starting point in this mini-odyssey in pursuit of a tradition of tough women novelists of the last 75 years is Fay Weldon, specifically Down Amongst the Women from 1971. She was one of the 50 names suggested when I crowdsourced with the prompt, "Who are the toughest, least sentimental female authors of all time?" Serendipitously, while clearing out books which didn't make it onto the shelves last time we moved, I came across this one. It was an engagement present from an old friend who scribbled on the inside cover, "So you don't get any ideas about obedience!" Exclamation mark. It is short enough to carry in my handbag. A perfect place to start investigating stylistic toughness. So if you'd care to join me in reading Down Among the Women, grab a copy from wherever you get your second-hand books. It seems to be out of print, but there is a Kindle edition. I'll share my reflections once I've read it and had a chance to think about what I really think about it. Wishing you all the flow. This is the Apostilian, signing off.